Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the Plain English webinar on writing for the web. You're very, very welcome. Thanks so much. It's 10 o'clock here on Friday, the 25th of April, after Easter. Delighted that you're here. We have about maybe 150 people who registered, which usually means about 70 people showing up, so up to 50. My colleague Claire is here, so I'm delighted that Claire's here. Do you want to say hello, Claire?
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Nice to meet you all.
Claire is the NALA Plain English coordinator, and my name's Sean Driver, and I'm the NALA Plain English editor and trainer. So we're, going to have a session today about writing for the web. I'm delighted that you're here. So why don't we share our screens and get started? Yeah. So maybe you've done training sessions with us before, or maybe you've been recommended to do training sessions with us, folks. So it's pretty laid back. It's pretty easy going. Hope to make it very interactive for you. We're going to record the session and then we're going to post it to YouTube. So yeah, so just if you consent to that, hopefully that's good. Um, yeah, what else can I say here? Yeah, so the webinar will be recorded. What else can I say? So the great thing about working in the public sector, in the private sector, in the charity sector, is just getting to know people, folks. And the people who sign up for this course are from all different sorts of organizations. So just at the start, it's always good to have a bit of an introduction. So if you just write in the chat box, "Hi, my name is Sean. I work in NALA. I'm the plain English editor and trainer in NALA, and I'd like to learn this about writing for the web." So if we just do like 2 minutes of introductions in the chat, that might be a nice way to do that. So if you click the chat button just to get started, just introduce yourselves in the chat. Would that be okay, folks? Trick with writing in the chat is press Shift and Enter. That gives you a line break. If you just press Enter, it'll send the message. So let's just get to know each other a little bit. Just write all those things in the chat, folks. Just introduce yourselves for a minute. Lovely. Lovely, folks. Great to see people from the Department of Education, people from Post-Primary Inspector and Department of Education, people from the libraries, from Gweedore Library. Fantastic. What we've been Donegal. Uh, Lovely. Thanks, Jennifer. So, Jennifer, you work with international students and you want to use plain English to help make communications more accessible for them. Excellent. So, writing for non-native speakers, English. Um, Morven in the Galway County Council. How to simplify communication. Jamie, working music network. Wants to learn more about now. That's great. Knowing more about plain English overall. Lovely. Lovely. Fantastic, folks. Great to have so many different people from different organizations. Uh, yeah, so we're going to try to make it very interactive, folks. Learn from each other, hopefully in the chat box, and hopefully we'll hear some voices throughout our session. So if you have any questions at any time, just put them in the chat. And if it's relevant to what we're talking about, I'll try to bring it in. If it's relevant, if it's not so relevant now, we'll talk about it later. So that's what we'll do. Lovely. What I also like, folks, is if I can actually see people. So maybe you've given presentations in the past, and you know what it's like presenting to the void. I think it can be hard. So if you fancy being, having your camera on, just say yes to camera in the chat, and then my colleague Claire will kind of find you and give you the power to turn your camera on. So that'll take a minute or two. But if you want to be a bit more involved, feel free to ask. Just say yes to camera, and then we'll turn your camera on, or you can turn your camera on. That's no obligation. It just helps me. I think it helps you a little bit as well. Thanks so much, Katrina. Lovely. Okay, so the plan for the webinar, folks, is talking about what makes a good web page. What do we want from a web page? So we're all people who use web pages and websites to get information, to access services. So like we are our users, but at the same time, we have to think about like who we're trying to serve. So what makes a good web page? Why do people use web pages? How do we make them, clear and easy and simple to read? I'm going to show you some practice that I think is good, but we can improve on it. And the question is, what can we learn from it? I'm going to show you examples of what I think are really good practice in Ireland. And it's like, okay, this is really good. How could I make my content a bit more like that? And then I'm going to do a little bit of a workshop, kind of putting you to work with some examples from the team. Yeah, so that's the plan, folks. I'm going to do a little bit of selling of Nala at the start. So if you like this webinar, folks, we have a Plain English network on LinkedIn. We have 650 members, and I'm always looking for people to join, to share resources, to share their experiences, to have guest webinars like this. So that's my little spiel to sell, folks. If you're interested in learning more about Nala, join our Nala Plain English network to stay in touch. Okay, so first question for you folks is just, what makes a good web page? So that's my question, folks. I just want to have a little list in the chat box. So like, just think about your own experience of like using the web. You probably used the web like dozens of times this week. What makes a good web page for you? Just let's have a little list in the chat. Just put your ideas in the chat. What makes a good web page? That's a new one for me. Maria, what is a CFA? Just type down in the chat. What's CFA? Thank you so much, Maria. Maria. So similar things emerging, folks. People saying navigate a lot. People using visually engaging a lot. Calls for action. Yeah. Intuitive. I like that word, Daryl. Intuitive, because that's what good design is. Good design kind of reads your mind, makes it easier for you to use it. Grace has minimalist design, straight to the point, no excessive use of intensive media. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. Videos that like load automatically and things like that. Um, yeah, good UX, good user design, user experience. Perfect. Yeah. So lots of characteristics there, folks. So keep them coming in. But for me, like I think websites and especially Gen AI nowadays, people come to things with questions. So it answers the reader's questions quickly and concisely. You'll see the way, nowadays you'll hit, like when you're searching Google, like you get like a summary from like Gen AI, and that's always very interesting. Or it used to be kind of like pull-out boxes to give you answers, but like we want our web pages to answer people's questions quickly and concisely. What I think is also it thinks in terms of user needs, not the organization's needs. So just think about that. Like I'm going to show you some examples. Is this written from the user's perspective or is it written from the organization's perspective? You don't want to overwhelm the reader with too much information. So like how much information, finding that balance is very important. Links, so again, you don't want to overwhelm people with links, but like making sure that your links link to relevant information, helps your information to be reliable. It's easy to navigate, so you don't have to spend a lot of time looking for the answer. The answer is very clear to find. And then follows best practice for web accessibility. So web accessibility, big topic, folks, like making things easy to scan with headings, alt text for images. So that just means describing images, so screen readers can use them. Using links, making sure they're descriptive, not saying click here. Readability, making sure it's easy to read and simple to read. And then like simple things like color, contrast, and design. So there's a lot of work that goes into making things simple and easy, folks. But there's a couple of characteristics of a good web page that I want us thinking about. Yeah. So say, folks, you're tasked with like putting a web page together, or as part of a content design plan, or part of an individual web page. What are the top tips for writing in plain English? So like this is like where I feel very comfortable writing about like editing content and writing content. So for me, like the top 6 tips are about like just that empathy. So imagine your readers speak directly to them. So that's what I want to get across in the examples we're going to look at. Who are our readers? What are they coming to us for? How can we serve their needs? Using the active voice, we're going to talk about that. This sounds a little bit grammary, but it's basically kind of stepping away from sounding very official, sounding very authoritative, to being more personal and direct. An example of this, folks, is contrasting the active voice with the passive voice. So I'll give an example of the passive voice. If you're reading a web page and it says applications must be submitted by email. Okay, so applications must be submitted by email. That's what we call the passive voice, because we're beginning with applications and it's very formal and you're saying must be submitted and you're saying by email. A more kind of personal and direct and encouraging way is to begin with like the magic words, or to begin with a you. Can anyone put that sentence in the active voice in the chat, folks? So if I say applications must be submitted by email, what would that be in the active voice? Applications must be submitted by email. Yeah, exactly. Please email applications, submit your application, you can. So getting the you in, getting the please in. So that's kind of a very, like, for me, that's a big shift in kind of philosophy, as much as anything else. It's kind of the you, giving people power to do things rather than speaking in a very authoritative organizational way. So that's what I mean by the active voice, using the we can help you, or you can do this. We're going to talk about using everyday words, the words of your readers, cut jargon, and explain technical words. So what this means, folks, is like in your work, whether it's in the Department of Education or whether it's in the court service, like you're giving people, information so they can make important life decisions. You want to cut away the office words and you want to explain the key technical words. So like being part of a jury, what does it mean to be part of a jury? You want to cut away needless kind of jargon, but explain like the responsibilities and rights of a jury member. Or in the Department of Education, people are accessing the school transport scheme. So like what does it actually mean? How are you gonna cut through the detail to get to like the key information? Um, yeah. So my mantra for that one, folks, is I think it's very memorable. I want to get cups and t-shirts. It's cut the fluff and explain the stuff. So hopefully that sticks with you. Cut the fluff, explain the stuff. Um, Another simple one is keeping things short and sweet. So I did this in a training session recently, and someone said, "That's very long, Sean, 15, 20 words." And maybe it is, depending on your audience. But think in terms of like averages. So sometimes you might have a 30-word sentence if it flows. Sometimes you might have a 5-word sentence if it flows. But on average, 15, 20 words. And when you go over that for a lot of sentences, it makes things hard to read. So, on average, 15, 20 words. Uh, Another key thing to remember, folks, is the inverted pyramid of writing. Well, what's that, folks? Well, it's just thinking like a journalist. So when you're reading something that's been published by the Journal or the Irish Times or the New York Times or the Guardian or whoever you're reading for your news, they'll use headlines, and then in the first paragraph they try to get the message across very, very quickly because people have like lots to read, they've lots to take in, and like when you're scrolling through things, you want to get people's attention very, very quickly. So that's the inverted pyramid of writing, folks. It's have the key information at the top, the additional information in the middle, and then the extra information at the end. So we're going to practice all these different things, folks. And then the last one is about using white space, so negative space, or short paragraphs to make things look easy to read, using headings, to make things easy to scan and to grab people's attention, and then using bullets, where relevance to kind of break down complicated pieces of text. So they're the top 6 tips, and we're going to apply them to like writing for the web, along with the principles you've all mentioned, folks. Um, yeah, so I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what I think are good practice from the DSP, but potentially ones we can improve. So when I say the DSP, folks, again, acronyms, it's the Department of Social Protection, it's welfare, doing an amazing job across the country, serving so many people. Yeah. So why do I use this as an example, folks? Because I think they're doing such great work, and we can learn a lot from it. But then we can also, think about how we could improve things. So this is my welfare, folks. This is like one of the main most popular web pages in Ireland, helping lots of people across the country. What I want you to do is just in the chat box, just pick out the things that are making this very, very strong. So just in the chat box, think in terms of the language, think in terms of the structure of it, think in terms of the design. What's making this strong? Put your ideas in the chat box. Yeah, I like that point, Stephanie. Small bites of information. So I like chunks or small bites, making things, uh, giving them identity. So how do they give them identity? They use an icon, they use color, and they use headings. What about the language, folks? What kind of words do you notice them using in the language? If you can point out how they're beginning each of their little kind of most of their sentences. Um, yeah, they're using the you and they're using active. Another word I want you to give me, folks, is a V word. What's the V word they're using? Action words. Yeah, they're using instructions. Yeah, they're using lots of verbs. Using lots of verbs. Yeah. So they have these categories, and then they say apply for, check, make. So I think that's people come to websites a lot of the time looking to do things. So I think that is it's a good thing to remember. And if you look at even the top of it, folks, creating that tone, how can we help you today? So it's trying to create a kind of warm tone. Is there anything you think we can improve? Would you make any suggestions? Because the kind of mentality for me for plain language folks is like, oh, this is strong, this is good, but we can also improve it. Is there anything there you would maybe query or think we can improve? Put them in the chat. Yeah, it's Deirdre. Yeah, I'm just taking a little kind of image of it, so there could be lots more that's not there. Is there a search button that you can usually find? Maybe that we should look at that. Yeah. Yeah, could we use bullet points potentially? Are there some big words there? Is there a little bit of jargon? Is upskill jargon? Is there anything else that might be jargon? Make your declaration for your casual job seekers. Like make your declaration. Is that kind of jargon, or is that language that the user would use? Check your eligibility. You know that word eligibility. Coming working in NALA, folks, the National Adult Literacy Agency. I remember talking to one of our learners, and he was talking about how multi-syllable words can be very hard for people who are, just emerging readers and learning to read. And he made the point about how work going into a local authority like a county council office and seeing the word information. Because it had so many syllables, it could be quite hard. So information, that's 4 syllables. And he made the point that just the word help was much simpler, was 1 syllable. So that kind of really struck home to me. And I'm just thinking, like, it's very hard to imagine what it's like to have a literacy difficulty or to have unmet literacy needs. So, like, with like eligibility, 5 syllables. Check if you qualify. Check if, so sometimes when we're working with citizens information, we might use qualify a bit more than eligibility. Um, yeah, so May, that's a good point. Can people who don't have English as a first language use this? It's a good question. So, I mean, the only way to do that would be user testing. Yeah, is it obvious enough where to click next to move on to the page you need? Good point, Suzanne. Translation option, really good point, Sarah. There's another point there. Yeah, and then Suzanne's point about find out more. Yeah, that's a really good point. Find out more about what. So if you have like a lot of buttons on your web page, or all find out more, find out more, find out more. It's not great for accessibility because it's like find out more about what. Like find out more about the public services card potentially could be the button. Uh, Good. Yeah, lovely. So, folks, you'll see that even like an excellent example like that, and I think that is an excellent example. And I'm sure like lots and lots of work went into that. But it's about like how can we make things better as we go along. So we learn from what we have and we iterate on it and we make it better as we go along by incorporating people's feedback, by incorporating user experience, by incorporating how it meets the needs of people. Okay. Um, Another example I want to look at, folks, is also from the DSP. Not picking on the DSP folks, I just think they do great work and they're such a big organization and yeah, they touch everyone's lives pretty much in the state, more or less. So here's their webpage from the gov.ie kind of website. And, a big movement over the years was to make government web pages very similar to each other with that gov.ie kind of template. So we're going to look at this web page, folks, and we've looked at this before in training sessions like this, so I hope you don't mind, but I think it's a good example. So we're going to look at this web page here, Access Officers on the Disability Act 2005. Okay, so that sits between customer feedback, social welfare phone numbers, but it's like one of their top 5 web pages they're promoting. So this might be a bit small on your page on your. Yeah, I think that's okay, folks. So what I want you to do is put yourself in the shoes of the person who's reading this, maybe a person with a disability or a family member of a person with a disability, and you want to access services. And I want you to think about like what's strong about this web page and what's making it hard, and then how can we improve it. So that's lots to do in one little section, folks. So let's focus on like, you know, um, if you were the reader and you were using this web page for information, how would we improve it? Let's focus on that. So read it a couple of times, read it 2 or 3 times, and put your suggestions in the chat. Really good analysis, folks. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, lovely. So folks, I might ask people just I like hearing other people's voices, folks, and I think other people do as well. So Deirdre, if I give you Deirdre Graham, if I give you access on the mic, do you fancy just making that point aloud? Is that okay, Deirdre Graham? So Deirdre Graham, do you fancy just making those points aloud? How would you improve the web page?
Hi, sorry, just had to turn on the mic there. Yeah, sure. Again, I suppose as other people are saying that the tone is not that warm, it's very wordy. There's some really good services in the middle of the page, but again, that could be highlighted, the services they are offering and obviously where to contact for more information. So maybe some color, some headings, and maybe some buttons to click into would help it a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Deirdre. So, like, just one final question for you, Deirdre, is would you say this is kind of user-centered or more kind of organizational-centered? I know it's a very leading question. What do you think? If you get me? Is it like putting the user's needs first or putting like the organization at the start, at the heart of it?
Yeah, the organization would be the
Yeah.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like about our access officers can do this, and this is the legislation. And it does eventually get to the U, but like where's the first mention of the U? It's kind of is it in the fourth paragraph? So it's in the fourth paragraph. But I think it is very strong. But it's just kind of maybe upside down a little bit. Any other points people are mentioning? No need to refer to Disability Act. Like that's a really interesting point, Fiona. Like I think maybe we have to mention it to kind of not cover ourselves, but to inform people. But like does it have to be the first thing people uh learn about or care about? I'd say not. I'd say people care about what's the user needs. The user need here is something else. Yeah, okay, to make this a bit interactive, folks, what I want you to do is just give me in the chat box, if you fancy, give me a headline for this. What, like, if you were scrolling through social media or you were like putting, like searching on Google, what would you actually be searching for? You wouldn't be searching for access officers under the Disability Act 2005. You'd be searching for what? Give me more kind of user-friendly, like, headline for this or title for this webpage. Put it in the chat box if you don't mind. Stu? Yeah, so you'll see, folks, a lot of people using that magic word like help or support or assistance. Um, yeah, so at the same time, you don't want to be patronizing, you don't want to be condescending, you don't want to dumb things down, but but you want to like get across like what we're actually doing here is providing support. So different tools to help us, folks. So let me just actually go to this page in the wild, if you don't mind for 1 second, folks. I just want to open up this page. So if we just open up this page here, what are some different tools that can help us, folks? So like one tool that I like, not as powerful as it used to be, but it's still quite good, is the Hemingway app. So the Hemingway app, folks, is a free online readability checker. So anything that's free and online, you have to be careful about putting sensitive information into it. But this is just a web page with general information. So you go to Google, type in Hemingway app or Hemingway editor, and then if you're working on like content or you're adapting content for the web that's in print or it's in a policy or you're designing a new web page, the Hemingway editor can help you just see how difficult it is to read. So what it does is it gives you a grade score on the right. And this is helpful. Take it with a pinch of salt, but it can be helpful. You want to aim for like for the general audience. You want to aim for kind of grade 8 or grade 9. This is based on the US kind of education system. So grade 8 or grade 9 is kind of like young, curious teenager, kind of 14, 15-year-old reading level. That doesn't mean you're writing for 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds. It means that you're writing for like a reading level that people have attained to kind of use kind of junior cert level of language understanding and concepts. So it's like writing for that kind of level. It's not patronizing, it's not condescending, it's just recognizing that people feel most comfortable reading information with words they're familiar with. And if you're going to introduce a new concept, then you have to explain it. So aim for grade 8 or grade 9 if you're using this. What it helpfully does is it shows you where your passive voice is in blue. Okay, so access officers are based. Okay, it's passive voice because that construction, the to be, the past participle are based. Is required. Past that's passive again. It shows you where long sentences are in red, so people pointing out these sentences are very long. Like your brain, your experienced folks will help you do that, but you know, the Hemingway app can give you a quick reading. Shows you where your adverbs are, and the reason why it suggests adverbs can be cut is because sometimes they're unnecessary, you know, so we'll process your request quickly. Okay, well, I think that's a good one. Usually they're usually fudge words, like normally this will be the case, or usually, or yeah, sometimes they can be cut, the adverbs. It shows you where words have easier alternatives, like assistance. Could we change assistance to help? But does that change the tone? Does it make it patronizing? You know, so these are things you got to consider. So that's the Hemingway app, folks. There's other things out there like this, like Grammarly, and there's lots of writing tools, writing aids like this. But I like the Hemingway one because it's very color coded. Yeah, just in the chat box, folks. Does anyone use the Hemingway app or has ever used it? Anyone find it helpful? Yeah, June, you use it. Yeah, I think it's a good way to start. And when you're writing things, reviewing things, it can give you kind of a fresh perspective. Okay, good stuff. So let's talk about something that's a bit more powerful nowadays, folks. So you know, AI. We'll look at Copilots, if that's okay, folks. So Microsoft Copilot, not making not advocating for using Copilot, but it's a tool. It's here. It's very powerful. Let's see how we can use it. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, can you put this in a reader-friendly way, following the plain English guidelines from, well, I'm going to say gov.uk, because gov.uk seem to be one of the best around. I'm going to capitalize English because you're watching me. Let's say it's for the general public. And I'm just going to copy and paste the text. So let's go back to this, folks. Give me 1 sec. Where's the text that I want to copy and paste? Yeah, we'll copy and paste just that part. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, folks, so you can see the whole thing. And yeah, maybe you're using Gen AI and ChatGPT and Copilot and these things a lot. But what do you think of the output there? Useful, not useful? Has it kept the meaning, changed the meaning? What are your thoughts about that?
Sean, Katrina
Yeah.
asked if this can be used in other languages. The MS Copilot, I don't know the answer myself, actually. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, was that about the Hemingway app, Katerina, or the I see some, or was that
Can
about
this
Copilot?
app be used? And I think, yeah, well, Katrina can clarify, but I thought it related to this MS Copilot, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for certain, Katerina, but I usually think they are available in other languages, Copilot, and I'm not sure the Hemingway app, but yeah, there's probably something similar in different languages. Okay, so yeah, so
it's
Fiona, you,
certainly much easier, isn't it, sorry, to translate from an English when it's been edited in plain English to other languages. So it's a bit of a help there. Sorry, Sean.
no, that's very good points, Claire. That's an excellent point. Yeah, so having a simple version in plain language will definitely aid any translations. Yeah. So yeah, so like, let's see. I'm just looking at the comments here, folks. People are putting things in from French. Very good. Perfect them all. Yeah. So Sarah, you've been using. Yep, Sarah. If I actually just bring you in for a second, Sarah Brown, just to hear your own experience. Sarah, if I give you the mic, just so you're using ChatGPT a bit. Do you fancy telling us about if it's working well or how it's working for you? Are you using it?
Sorry, I just had to work out how to take myself off mute. Yeah, so we're looking at some of our web pages at the moment, exactly what you've shown us here.
Mhm.
And I've been using ChatGPT just to give me a bit of a foundation, and then I tweak it from there.
Yeah.
And it works
Yeah.
really well, and it's, very quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any kind of challenges or any learnings you've had from doing it? Like things you'd like say, do this or don't do this? Anything you'd recommend to people?
Um,
No, I'm putting you on
what
the
I've
spot now. For one yet.
Yeah.
What's there?
So all I've been doing, I haven't made it live yet. So
Okay.
just been going through the pages. So I haven't had any feedback on it yet. What I've been doing is saying I want a readability age of
Mhm.
12 or whatever. And it breaks it down like that. Sometimes I feel the sentences are a bit too simplified. So as I say, I then go back and retweak it. But it definitely makes the job a lot easier than just going through it myself.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So, like things like Microsoft Copilot, like there are tools that can help us. Like nothing's gonna beat folks like a human understanding, being able to understanding your readers, having that empathy. But I think tools like this, it can be helpful. Again, there is like a huge energy cost using tools like this. There's a lot of negative reaction against people overusing AI or using it to replace human art or human thoughts. So just have a policy about it. And if I was to show you a policy. Sorry, folks. Public Relations Institute of Ireland. AI guidelines. I should have these ready, but I don't. Um, yeah, so I'll put these in the chat, folks, and I'll also share resources with you afterwards. So, like, if you're going to use Gen AI in your work, just be careful for lots of things. And I came across these AI use of AI in public relations, but content for Relations Institute of Ireland members, and they're very, very useful. Just review for accuracy, relevance, potential bias. Be transparent if you're going to use it. Are people doing that? I'm not sure people are. Recognize the potential limitations. Have high quality data inputs. Stay updated. Enhance human efforts rather than replace them. Comply with data protection. So yeah, you can have a reach of them, folks, and they can be a good basis for a policy if you're going to use them. So I think it's we can't ignore that it's here, but there are things we should consider when we're using it. Yeah, other points coming in from the chat, folks. Have to be conscious when AI uses American English. Yeah, so be careful of that. Like your organization does it have a Z, that's American. Does it have an S, that's UK Irish. Um, People mentioning hallucinations and making errors. Um, yeah, thank you, Tony. Good to see have you here, Tony. Things hallucinate. Yeah, it makes errors a lot. And then there's also like I'll stop talking about AI, folks, in a second. I'll go back to other things, but it's also to consider just like if you're gonna overuse AI, what does it do for like your authority? I've seen a lot of Reddit things where people have been giving out about what they call AI slop. Um, but this is like a page from the OPW, I think the Office of Public Works, and it's about flooding. And if you look at the images they've used there, folks, I mean, I know I'm introducing this here, but do you think they were generated by a human using software, or do you think they were generated by like an AI tool? Bit of a leading question, but what do you think? And it's just something about like your brains. They used to talk about the uncanny valley that would like something wasn't human. You could tell it wasn't human. But like I think the good example here, folks, is like this is about flooding, protecting ourselves about flooding. Like what's the true P's they have here? They have plan, prepare, protect. There's huge cost, but using Gen AI. But like, are they the rivers of Ireland? I mean, I don't. Did geography for the Leaving Cert, but I don't. Are they the rivers of Ireland? I don't think so. So there's just something a bit off about using AI at the moment. You can just tell that it's not real. So if you're going to overuse AI in your work, people are going to have that kind of feeling like, is this written by a human or is it written by AI? So it's about like making sure that you don't lose that authority, you don't lose that kind of personal touch. Yeah, yeah, the River Shannon. Yeah, June River Shannon's disappeared. Yeah, so follow the rules, follow the guidelines from the Public Relations Institute. Okay. Good stuff. So you can see, folks, that I like rabbit holes. So we looked at that page from the DSP, written very, very well. And then if I was going to have a go at using the plain English techniques, folks, I might make it a bit like this. So this is kind of Sean's version. So have a read through that. Bring us back to it. So have a read through that, folks. And the question is, what plain language techniques are we using to try to get the message across? So just put them in the chat. Good to have you here, Adele. Yeah, good use of the if. I like with citizens information, we use if a lot. If you're in this situation, you can do this. And it's a good way to kind of bring things in gently. Uh, Using subheadings, using bullets. I mean, I'm a big fan of one-line sentences. Probably too big a fan. Maybe we need more paragraphs. But I think, one-line sentences or one-line paragraphs can be very impactful. Uh, so use them sparingly, but they can be very useful. I'm including the legislation, but I'm putting it at the end and then including the link to it as well. Anything else? And like just thinking in terms of user needs, like how to request support, how to make a complaint, and then try to use more accessible links. Maybe we could improve how to make a complaint one a little bit. There you go. Good point, Paul. Social welfare offer interpreters, not just people with disabilities. Yeah. The points people making. Any other things that come to your mind, folks, like about this web page or how we can improve it more generally? I think you said a lot, but any final points? Yeah, using icons, color images. Yeah, that's one of those things about like accessibility where I think like if you know what you're doing, if you've a big budget, and you have like a design system, you can use that. But I think otherwise it's just best to keep things very simple. When I talk about design system, folks, what do I mean? Well, I was doing a talk with our friends in the HSC a little while ago, and a gentleman called Brian Lamb gave a talk to a group of us. I'm very thankful to Brian, and he mentioned the HSC's design system, and I haven't kind of wrapped my head around this completely, but basically it's like a pack of design instructions, so that if you're putting together like a web page for the HSC, you have like the principles, resources, the styles, the components, the patterns. So I'd suggest folks, if you were having a big project to redo your website, sorry Tony, this is too late for you because you've just done it, and did a great job. Like this design system could be helpful. So I'll put a link to that in the chat, folks, and that might be another resource you can look at. Yeah, and Tony makes a good point about not liking question words in titles. Yeah, because they make things a bit longer. So like example, instead of saying how to make a complaint, maybe just make a complaint because the how to is maybe two words too much. So that'll be very granular, very good. Request support, you need the how to. Good points, good points. Okay, lovely. Will we do this? Yeah, we'll do this. So like we're looking at writing for the web, folks. So just, the idea is just that empathy. Move away from being organization centered to being more kind of user centered. If you're in this situation, you can do this, bullet points, short sentences, and subheadings. Like you might also be writing for Instagram or social media or LinkedIn. God, LinkedIn. So yeah, I mean, again, social protection. I like this example because I did lots of training sessions with the DSP folks with lots of examples from them as well. That's also helpful. If we look at this Instagram post, folks, this is something that could affect all of us. I think about my parents, think about myself. I've been victims of things like this. Technology is changing so quickly, so people need people need accurate messages from authorities they can trust, and like people should be able to trust the government. So it's a simple thing here, folks. Just the ideas in the chat box. What's strong about this message they're putting across, and are there any ways to improve it? So yeah, I'll give you a minute or two in the chats. We're focusing on the left. We're also focusing on the right. Mostly on the left, the image. Put your thoughts in the chat. Hi, Tony. Do you fancy making that point aloud? I think it's a really excellent point to make, and just make that point aloud.
Yeah, it's the only time that they used fraudulent is just in the image title. Even say like the description text on the right, it's scam there and it's scam everywhere else. So I'm not really sure why they chose a different word for the title.
Yeah,
might have been maybe an early draft left over from an early draft where they said, "Oh, scam is much more user friendly," but they forgot to change it in the title, maybe.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think you answered the question very well there. Yeah. Other points coming in. Yeah, it's a good point, Fiona. Like, even though it states "do not click on this link," there's something kind of intuitive in your brain. You're like, "Oh my God, I want to touch it." And this, you know, it's like electricity. Like it's like an electric fence, isn't it? You want to touch it. Do not click on this link. I really want to touch it because it looks like a link. Anything else? Yeah, are they kind of saying? Are they? Maybe I've cut it off there a little bit, but there is kind of a DSP kind of banner at the bottom. Um, Yeah, see, it's not a link. I think like they're saying, do not click on this link, but that's not a link. It is just a message they're trying to emphasize, but because they've underlined it, makes it look like a link. So it's very counterintuitive. It's a good point, Christine, about the word alert. Yeah, like sometimes I see like organizations with posters on social media where they have like notice, customer notice, or like alerts. And like when you're scrolling through social media and you look at the real good communicators, they draw you in by like not saying this is a customer notice or this is an alert. They draw you in by saying like, you know, like they give you like an example or they give you like a bit of wits or a bit of an image or an interesting thing. They don't start with like alert, fraudulent text message. So I think like being more everyday could work, you know, so get the message across, like watch out for scam text messages, you know, rather than fraudulent text message. Do you get me? Um, the image behind it not really relating to the contents. That's a good point. Like that looks something more like by electricity, doesn't it? Rather than maybe it's telecommunications, but it looks for me that kind of reads more like ESB. Yeah, so I think it's very, very good example, but it's actually things we can improve. So that's what you always think about, folks. Like apply these principles to your own content. What's strong about it? What can we improve? Okay. Lovely. So in terms of resources, folks, to help you, one that I like a lot about social media is the gov.uk social media playbook. And again, I'll send you a link to this after the training session. And it's just kind of goes through how the government's digital service in the UK like use social media, and it kind of goes through different examples of how they use it. So I'll send that to you if you're only getting started running for social media. It's good to have an authority. Uh, and then another great resource from our friends in the UK is the gov.uk content design manual. So I think if you write for the public, folks, like it's good to know about like what's best practice, and it can change, it can evolve. But the people who write for gov.uk kind of stay on top of things. They have good blogs, and it can be a good place to go as like as a primer. Um, yeah. So they
Dawn,
talk.
can I just interrupt you for a
Yeah,
moment?
yeah, Claire.
I just want to say that there's a fantastic resource. Many of you may be familiar with it from the National Disability Authority and Deeper, or I forget Deeper's new name now, and I've just put a link to it in the chat. And it has checklists for creating social media content and all kinds of online forms and other stuff. So I just want to flag that's useful as well. There it is. Great.
Great, thanks, Claire. Yeah, I was gonna mention that a bit later. So yeah, that's a really good resource, folks. That has like really great sections in the middle. So yeah, so the link I sent you, you'll see there's kind of three different versions of it there. I usually use the one in the middle. You have that, and then there's all these different sections here about like writing for print, writing for digital, writing for the web. So if you go down to here, there's this digital version here. You'll see that there's on the left, you have the web accessibility guidelines, you have writing for the web, you have content quality, links. So I think that is a really good resource as well. Yeah. So I think the gov.uk one and then the NDA one, National Disability Authority, are like the best around. Good stuff. So just in terms of like, we've already kind of mentioned it, folks, but like writing a user needs and don't overthink this, folks. Like people can sometimes overthink like what user need is. It just means like it's a way to put yourselves in the shoes of your reader. So they have this kind of very simple structure, which is like, as this person, I need to do this or I want to do this so that I can do this in my life, you know? And like that's how gov.uk kind of structure their web pages. Yeah. So like the DSP example that we looked at, you could like think about it as a person with a disability, or even be more specific, like drill down into like who's actually looking at the page, like what do people want to use as a person like who's blind or who's like vision loss, you know? I want to do this, so I can do this. So and it's usually the middle part here, I want to, that can help you kind of actually think about like what your content should be achieving. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a little example based on this, folks, and this one comes from our friends in Dún Laoghaire. So I was doing a training session with Dún Laoghaire Rathdown County Council, and they had this press release, and I was thinking, oh, this is really, really good. And the press release kind of title was excellent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. Oh no, don't look at that, folks. You didn't see that. I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the top of it here, the first paragraph and the second paragraph. And what I want you to do is in the chat box, like, what are you actually asking the reader to do here? Okay, so have a read through the first paragraph and the second paragraph in the chat box. Give me a very short headline that kind of gets across what you're actually asking the reader to do. Because subheadings and getting the key message across very quickly, very techniques to practice. So the task is, folks, give me a good headline to introduce that. When you're ready, read the first paragraph, second paragraph, and then give me a headline in the chat. Very good, June. I like a bit of humor. Adele, yeah, using a question. Good. It's interesting, Paul. Yeah, a bit of humor again to drive people to it. Bernadette getting the eco. Yeah, maybe good to use a keyword like eco. Lovely. So the one they went for, folks, was what was the one they went for? Zoom out a little bit. I'll give the game away a little bit, but there we go. So it's apply to operates a floating sauna in Dillonary Harbour. And I was just kind of struck by how user focused it was. Like they're trying to get across what they want the person to do. So if you're scanning through, their webpage or like their social media posts and you see, you're informed that something's going to happen, but it's also like getting you involved, like you can actually, targeting business owners to do this. So it's a very interesting way to do it. Okay. Lovely, folks. We've got 15 minutes left or so. So we'll do some examples of good practice. So one example of good practice, folks, I think that deserves to get a bit of a shout out is from our friends in the court service. So I'm actually going to open this up in the wild, folks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link to a web page that the court service have recently updated about jury duty. Okay, so again, something that might affect everyone in the country. So what I want you to do is I want you to click in to that link there, folks, and just take 3-4 minutes, read the home page and then maybe open up one or two of the sub pages of it and just, again, think about what's strong, what can we improve. So I'll give you that for a few minutes, folks. So just, open up the link, read the main page, and then read some of the sub pages. What's strong, what can we improve? Good work, folks. So have a look at the main page and then click into one of the sub pages and give yourselves a minute or two to have a read through that and see what you think in terms of those pages. Maybe a popular one is Ask to be Excused. I'm going to take a look at that. Lovely. Yeah, so just going to point to that, folks, as an example of good practice. A lot of work went into this to put it together. I think it's quite user-centric, you know. First thing is like responding to your jury summons, what serving on a jury is like, asking to be excused, your employment rights. So, you know, very user-friendly content. Lots of short sentences, lots of subheadings, lots of descriptive links, some bullet points. Yeah, good stuff. That's a good point, Paul. Is there some information that's a little bit buried? Well, yeah, that could be something to think about. Like, and you have to think about like, have they buried it for a reason? So this part here, asking to be excused from jury service, like it goes through has the introduction that has like this long list of not eligible, disqualified, excused as of right, all other excuses or excusals. Then excusals, is that like a plain English word? And then how to apply to be excused. Like this part here, should that be higher up? Maybe they'd argue that, oh, they want to explain everything before they get to how to apply because they don't want to make it too easy for people to apply to be excused. You know, so I can see logic to it, but at the same time, like maybe that should be higher up, you know. So yeah. And yeah, they have videos as well, which is another good introduction. Like I've seen some videos that are very helpful, some videos that are a bit not so helpful. So I think that's where plain language should come in as well, making sure that you have a good script and it's well written. That was logic, James. Fantastic. Thanks, James. Yeah, and I think there's a talk coming up, and I can send this on to you as well, folks. There's a talk coming up from the jury, from the court service about like how they're doing the project. So I'll send you a link to that because I think they're a good example of people doing really good work, like the DSP, like the court service. Okay, one more example I want to do, folks, is I really like working people to the end. This was like when I do training sessions like this, folks, or webinars, I like getting examples from folks, and maybe it was because of Easter, but no one sent in any examples, and I was a bit disappointed. But I was looking through people's email addresses, and I was thinking, we have a few people from the Financial Services and Pensions Ombudsman. And I was thinking, okay, that could be a good example because it's something that could affect all of us in difficult moments of our life. So this is their homepage, folks. It's just like a section of their homepage. And yeah, so what I want you to do, folks, is just like, yeah, have a look at it, and then you tell me what's meeting the user's needs in the chat box. What's making this easy to use? Yeah, so we have buttons that kind of bring us to key actions. And then we have the step-by-steps. So the design is a little bit, we have to kind of get used to the design, but there's lots of great things there. So step-by-steps process, even on the front page, you don't have to go looking for it. And then you have the clear things. Yeah. So what I want to jump to, folks, is I want to jump to the last part, which is I wanted to get you working out a little bit. And I found one part of that web page which needed a bit of work. Okay, so it was this page about how to make a complaint to the FSPO, the Financial Services and Pensions Ombudsman. And I thought this part here was very, very strong. Okay, so I had like, if you're not satisfied, you can make a complaint. To press your complaint, we'll need these two things. To submit a complaint form, you need to complete this online form. And the Irish version, if you have difficulty, here's the phone number. Great. But then we came down to like the tricky parts. Okay, so we have here, if your complaint concerns. Okay, so this is similar to what we've just done, folks. It's like what I want you to do is I want you to again, so like just go back here for a second. Like we can scan through this quite easily because we have like links and white space and bullet points, so that can help us scan. But here, what I want you to do is I want you to think about like, okay, if I was tasked with making this legal text a bit more plain language, and sometimes the battle you'll face is like, oh, it's legal, we can't change it. But like as much as possible, we want to try to win those battles and get across that like we can't put legal information into plain language. Okay. So one way to do it is to give it a subheading. So I want you to read through it, folks, and just give me a subheading to introduce it, and then maybe mention one or two ways we could simplify it. I know it's a big task, but I'll give you a few minutes in the chat. Good work, folks. So yeah, you're doing great work there. People coming in with headlines, people coming in with suggestions how to improve it. So yeah, we talked through this, folks. Like if we use the Hemingway app, and I think the Hemingway app can be very effective just to show, say you're working as on the website and people give you content and you think this content needs a bit of work and they no, we can't change the words. You're like, well, I mean, if we put it to Hemingway, Hemingway can show us that it's actually postgraduate. You need a postgraduate degree to be able to, easily understand it. So do you want your content to be that hard, or do you want to like make some changes that we can make it easier? So I think the Hemingway app is just, it's like a bit of a tool to like just get like people to win people over, and I think it works because they see, oh, it's red, and it's kind of got lots of passive voice. And then the things you've mentioned, folks, like the first sentence. If I was look at the first sentence, folks, turn it into two sentences very, very easily. Um, I think there's one part in the first paragraph where we could turn it into two sentences. Just put it in the chat box. Where's the magic word that shows us we could turn that into two sentences? The first paragraph. The therefore, yeah. So the and the therefore, so that was, by turning that into two sentences would make it a lot easier. And then we have this kind of, I think this has just been copy and pasted from like legal disclaimer, so the FSPO, the FSPO, the FSPO. So like being personal and direct, turn that into a we, and you recognize that's like it's legal writing because there's like these triplicates. You have these kind of rights, entitlements, and liabilities. So often you'll see like these kind of three O's, these triplets. So how could we, make that a bit simpler? Like again, is that kind of just that kind of legal disclaimer's kind of been dumped in the middle? So maybe we bring it down, or can we cut it? Yeah. So I had to go with that this morning. I was looking at having a headline like this. So it's like joint policy complaints, both signatures needed. And that's why I really love subheadings, is because I'm trying to boil down the main point without dumbing it down, without being patronizing into that. And have a look through that, folks. And what techniques do you see? Hopefully we've kept the meaning. Just any thoughts about that kind of minor rewrite in the chat? Yeah, good point, Adele. Make sure we explained FSPO. Yeah. Lovely. So techniques there, folks, just shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs, trying to break down legal text into something that's a bit more plain language, and moving it to the end. I kind of took the middle paragraph, moved it to the end, and tried to make it one. It is one long sentence, but I try to make it flow. So when I use the Hemingway app, yeah, I got grade 11. So, will I be happy with that? Depending on how much time I have, I might try to rework it a bit more. Yeah, good point, Patrick. Could you link to the complaint form again? Or should we keep it like the one link there? Yeah, something to consider. Okay, lovely, folks. Just give me a second to wrap things up. I always go late, folks. If you have to leave, it's been a pleasure. If you can stay for 2-3 minutes, I'll just wrap things up. So the top 6 tips. Yeah, if I'd longer, I'd make you unmute and shout these at me. But like, here are the top 6 tips, folks. So the first one was imagine your who and speak what to them. Well, imagine your readers and speak directly to them. Use the what voice. Use the active voice. Use everyday words, the words your readers. Cut these and explain these. So I'd say cut jargon, explain technical words. Keep sentences short. Use how many words? Use 15 to 20. Use the what pyramid of writing. I'll use the inverted pyramid writing. Just keep the key message at the top. And then make things look easy to read. Use white space, headings, and bullets. So, I think they're the top 6 tips, and we can apply them to lots of different things to keep our message clear. I'm going to tell you about the Plain English Network again, folks. So if you like this webinar, do consider joining our NALA Plain English Network. We've great other guest speakers and webinars coming up. We have an online training, folks. So if you want to get more intense kind of feedback about your writing, do feel free to join us in June. You can sign up on our website. There is a fee, but I think it's quite reasonable. So think about that. We have another webinar coming up in June. So do spread the word, folks. We're going to be looking at writing for leaflets and publications. So if you have something for print, do feel free getting in touch, folks, and sending it on, and we can workshop it in that hour. If you're interested in some professional developments, you can join our Learn with NALA websites, and you can actually do some interactive courses. Our friends in Adult Literacy for Life, like Adele, thanks for coming, Adele, launched in partnership with us an e-learning course about Let's Talk About Plain Language. So if you want to do a more another interactive course, folks, on your own time, there's like a 90-minute course you can do, and I'll send you the link afterwards. Yeah, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for your time. I'll stick around for any questions. But thank you so much, and I hope to see you again. Lovely, folks. So if you have a question, pop it in the chat again, or I remember there was one question about color contrast. Yeah, about color contrast, folks. Someone asked about color contrast, and what I usually say is, like, or for color blindness, is that there's some color contrasts you want to avoid. I think like red and green is like one you want to avoid, where having them overlapping. And what else? Yeah, and my basic thing about color blindness is you want to make sure that color isn't used alone to signify meaning. So I think about traffic lights, folks. Like when you have your traffic lights, you have like your red, and you have your amber or your yellow, and you have your green, and like you have position that actually tells you like which is the red. So the red's at the top, the amber's in the middle, and the green's at the bottom. So there's like some sort of contact. So it's not just the color that's telling you that you can go or stop. Like sometimes there's an icon of like a walking man or a walking person. So you don't just want to use color alone to signify meaning. So that's just something to consider. And then I can dig out like a web page that kind of goes on about like how colorblindness can affect people, because it is a big issue for a lot of people. Yeah, Silk Tide, that's a new one. June, I'd never heard of Silk Tide. The one I usually use for color contrast is the color contrast checker. I like that one. So there's one here from our friends in WebAIM. So if you have the color contrast, have the color codes, you can pop them in there, and then you can just like check the colors. So the one I usually use to indicate the color contrast is like light green on white or lime green on white, and you'll see here that kind of fails web accessibility standards. Yeah, so you want to make sure that if you're going to use a green, make sure it's dark enough that it passes web accessibility standards. Yeah, and there's a question here from, can we access this webinar again? Yeah, Laura, so we'll put on YouTube, and then because you signed up, it'll be sent directly to your email after when we're ready to publish it. Lovely. Okay. Any other questions, folks? Feel free to jump in, or Claire, do you have anything to say before we say goodbye?
No, I think that's good. I think you're start with the toolkit from the communications toolkit from the NDA. Start there. Simplest.
Can you put a link for that website, please, in the chat? I think that was the WebAIM one, wasn't it? So that's the WebAIM.
Yeah. It's great that so many people came. I really appreciate it.
Lovely. Cool, folks.
And if you have any questions, come back to us anytime.
Yeah. Thanks for all your feedback, folks. Thanks for all your involvement in the session. That really makes it. It's great to hear some different voices. So I'll bring things to a close, folks. That's okay. And hope to see you again. Wish you the best.
Hi,
Lovely.
Sean. Well done.
I'll give you a call in a sec, Claire, just because for
Yeah.
the recording. Is that okay? Thanks so much.
Yeah.